So I suppose off the top, the biggest one would be obviously the further delay and the launch being pushed down the track. Maybe if you could just start with some of the factors or variables that have come into play that, and then that can segue maybe into the exchanges and why you've got to look carefully at those on the back of obviously a good video that was out there looking at some of the exchanges.
Yeah, look, just in terms of the core issue, which is the exchanges, I think I just want to make sure we keep everything in context. The system itself is the crucial part that runs the entire network, which is your split chain, which is your Zutopia, and without that, we wouldn't even be talking about listing on anything. So we just keep in mind that the so-called delays and excuses, etc. There is no delays, or has been no delays. We've been running 18 months with the core of the system. So let's just put that in context. The second bit then, of course, is you're looking for exit strategies for a whole range of different people who have acquired, quite rightly, the Zutopia themselves, which are part of that network. So for the first part of the, if I go back to the March timeline, where we have got, I think there's the 5 exchanges. They're not cancelled, they're just pending, and for good reason. And they might sort themselves out post the Zutopia. So the main focus from March through till recently has been making sure that we've got the scalability of the split chain itself, which is in the earlier Zoo times I've been doing. And secondly, that it's in a position to be able to cope with the volumes that we want to put in play in relation to even the trading of Zutopia. So if you don't get that right, which is now we're quite comfortable that's in a good position, which leads back to the Zoobot, there's no point bothering with having any listings of anything, because you can't bring into play millions of participants. You'll bog down, and the whole thing becomes a mess. And you just, all of us, and I'm a Zutopia, my entities are a Zutopia holder, as you guys are, and we've just wasted our time and lost our money if that's not put in properly. So the analysis that the advisory groups we've got, which I'll be sharing the news that it's not today, but certainly down the road, and this also circles back to who are still on our payroll, Mate, Takei, and also Sam Volkering, that be careful and conscious of what's happening around you in the world with exchanges. Now, yesterday I put out with the good wishes of myzoocoins.org a very extensive update that talks about the issues that relate to the world as it sees fit with crypto and exchanges. Sadly, I'm not suggesting people in this room, but sadly, the vast majority of people don't bother reading anything, which makes it very awkward and difficult for us to bring a message as to the reasonings as to what I've been doing to give us that safety and outlet in terms of the exchanges. Now, I would suggest that everybody takes the time to read the email, because that all your questions are answered as to the problems with world crypto and exchanges. Now, in there's also a link to a recent report by the Treasury, which talks about the reason they're changing Australian rules in relation to exchanges is purely because of the issues and the effect that those exchanges around the world have had on people's money. That relates to money going into an exchange and coins, and money coming off exchanges, and the way in which the exchanges are losing coins. So to be brushed along or pushed along for the sake of saying, yes, I'm listed on a particular exchange which we've had in place, becomes an absolute nonsense if the system A can't cope, and B, you're not going to get the buyers there and you can't get your money out. So the Treasury report has identified those very issues. It's in the first paragraph on page 3. It's in the second paragraph on page 3, and it clearly tells you the reasons why the exchanges are problems, and the exact reasons why we've taken the approach that we have, and the decisions I've made in relation to that. So, the terminology of unnecessary delays is a vital ingredient for the safety of all of us in terms of Zutopia. Now, I don't want to go through the point by point of what they are because they're in front of our very eyes as to what those issues relate to. And I just hope that you would read that and then you'll understand the decisions as to the timelines of what we put in play to overcome those barriers and problems through Zutopia. Does that make sense?
Yeah. So with that in mind then, the Zutopia, where does that fit and how does it compare to the functionality of an exchange? You've just mentioned that the ones that may have been previously listed, they're not cancelled, they're still there. What you're saying is some of the things that may have let those exchanges down can be fixed and therefore they come back onto the radar as a possibility? Is that?
Yeah, so look, the fix, firstly, I'm very, very comfortable with what Robert's done and built with the ability for this split chain to handle the volumes that I'd like to see out there, both in terms of new wallet holders and new coin buyers, or sellers for that matter, transacting. And secondly, the development aspect, which will be next year, of things that can be built, has a direct bearing and impact on the longer term value of zoo coins. It's not just about the speculation and people are out there trying to make a quick buck. I get all that, and people have problems. I don't find it very pleasant, looking at a $250,000 burn rate per month simply because they're saying that I'm looking at, stalling or not wanting it to happen. It's just absolute utter garbage. I'm probably right at the forefront of wanting to have seen it as quick as we can for my own personal reasons. So the Zutopia set out to determine, obviously we didn't want Robert to build that out because that would just absolutely play havoc with his timelines on what he's got to build, which is a high level development component, and that's leading to the Zubot. So we've got an outsourced team that's been engaged. They've been committed to contracts. They say they can complete in 57 days. They say that they will deliver the front and back end of Zutopia. We put the date at the 30th of November, which is their timelines. So, for all the hullabaloo that goes on about timelines and what's happening, I'm not a coder. I don't do any of that sort of stuff. So we're guided and driven by the contractors that we have in play, and they have penalties and things and all the rest of it. So the Zutopia, from where I sit with what we've got in play, is 30 November, and that's all about the uniqueness of it is to solve the problems which are in the Treasury report and the problems which you see in that email I sent yesterday out through the support. Now, when you look at that, the key to it is exchanges around the world, and this is the exact problem with which Treasury has highlighted. People are losing money because the exchanges are taking their coins, which they need to do, whether it's Bitcoin or Ethereum. It's one-way traffic. You can send a coin in this crypto space and it can end up anywhere. So they need to put that into a custodial wallet. They then need to say, okay, we've sold those coins to a third party. They need to get money from that third party. They need to have custodial accounts, which then brings into play what the Australian government is saying, as other governments around the world, that they've got to manage that money prudently, and they've got to be regulated for AML and KYC before they can take that money out of that exchange. Now, the effect of the Australian regulation, for example, in their own words, 400 exchanges, small exchanges in Australia, will be closed. So we're preempting the issues that Zutopia doesn't fall into that category because neither Alan Indres or anybody associated with Zutopia is putting itself as an intermediary to look after coins or manage people's money. The only reason we can differentiate is because Robert's created the two-factor authentication that you've seen when you transfer a coin between a buyer and seller. You cannot screw that up, which means the exchanges cannot mess up where those coins have got to go, because in Zutopia world, all you need to put in is your wallet address, your public wallet address, your credit and debit card details. There's no requirement for KYC and AML, and we've had that legally confirmed because we're not managing people's assets or money. We're just hosting the site to allow the peers to interact with each other directly. Now, the moment you put a coin up on the list, it's a bit like Gumtree, and it's a very user-friendly interface with what I've seen so far. which we've been dumbing it down again and again, is so that you simply put your coins up for sale or you put a buy, and the system will take care of it from there the moment the buyer or seller presses the button. Coins are transferred between peers directly, money goes from one card to another card, and that's it. Now, there's no exchange in the world that can do that because there's no coin that has the capacity for two-factor authentication to give guaranteed certainty on transfer of coin. That is a fact. Now, why I say the exchanges are on hold is because it suddenly is in a position that they still can list coins. Anybody, anywhere can list Zoo coins. They don't need me or my entities to put in play listing. We've still got 5 there, by the way. The bottom line is they'll be able to use what's called an API or a connection to the back end of Zutopia, and they will be able to process exactly the same as though we're white labelling anywhere in the world on exchanges. So anybody in the room that has an association with an exchange can certainly post Zutopia, embrace that and say, look, here's the open source code, knock yourself out, put the coins on another market, and away you go. So the strategy, of course, is that as more and more exchanges are closing and losing clients, it's getting harder and harder to take advantage of or the value of their databases. For example, Binance has now closed all UK customers. Binance has now stopped US dollar withdrawals. And then people say to me, well, why don't you use CoinSpot, one of the Australian ones? Well, you've just vaporised 95% of the world market because you rely on Australian citizens to be participants in buying Zoo coins. So you need an international footprint, you need a global market, and that's what the mandate is for Zutopia.
Alan, you mentioned coins going peer-to-peer and then cash going from bank account or card to card. Can that happen without an intermediary? So is that, if there's cash involved, is that done outside of Zutopia, and therefore who do you need to involve?
Well, there's no involvement of any third party in that scenario. So as an example, if Rob, you were selling 10 Zoo coins for $100 or $1,000,
yeah,
the system would pick up your wallet address. You would have inserted your MasterCard or Visa card into the database with Zutopia, with the card processor. So it's a processor that leads into Visa and MasterCard. I would do the same as the buyer. The card processor will be saying, we need to take $1,000 off Alan Andrews' debit card, and it does a pre-authorization, a bit like you see in a hotel.
yeah,
When you go in. It'll check the system and the network to see that Rob's not lying and actually has those 10 Zoo coins, and it'll instruct Rob to transfer those 10 to my wallet, and in that nanosecond it'll confirm that transfer, and then it'll send the $1,000 directly from my card to your card. There's no intermediaries involved here at all. I'm not here to be managing 10 million people with 10 million phone calls worrying where their money's gone. And that's one of the great incentives of Zutopia. I want to disconnect and become a normal Zoo coin holder, just like everybody in the room,
yeah,
and then enjoy the processes as well.
Okay, so that processing is handled by Zutopia, so there's no one external, it's just part of the programming that allows that peer-to-peer transfer of both coins and dollars involved.
Yeah, look, it's just that we're hosting a site that says here's a platform and everybody can knock themselves out and achieve that outcome. Where the processor makes the money, of course, so they're going to charge a small fee in relation to their credit or debit card, like you go to a merchant.
Yep.
It's the peers that actually dictate the terms of the process, because you're going to get instructions that are automated that, you know, person X needs 1 to 10 coins. Have you done that? Yes, no. Press a button, and you then do the transfer on your phone directly to the phone as you would normally. So it's eliminating that middle layer, which is the problem around the world, which I'm hoping we all take the time and even though it's lengthy, read every point as to why the crypto exchanges around the world in the last 6 to 12 months is a disaster.
Yeah, no, I did watch it last night, Alan, and what I liked about it was how it differentiated between those platforms in the marketplace and exchanges that are taking it seriously. There's only one that's made it through to be audited by a Big Four. And then obviously that proof of reserves, the organisations that are doing that, obviously with their major asset classes, gives, again, a live update as to where they sit with those reserves, which can't be tampered with. They are direct feeds, basically. So some are trying in the marketplace to be transparent, to make up for the fact that there have been cowboys in the marketplace. So.
Yeah, and look, I think they've come up with terms of proof of reserve and all sort of stuff. It's like an external auditor saying, yes, we confirm that the exchange is holding X number of coins on behalf of so many millions of people. The problem with that is you've still got a trusted party that can cause problems. I mean, the major companies in the world have had auditors. Enron had auditors, and they brought down a $20 billion company. So that doesn't give any comfort if you've got a third trusted party. So what we're doing here is saying we've got the advantage of the only two-factor system in the world that the people between each other transfer coins and know exactly who is the sender and receiver. No one has that. Now, with that gives comfort to say, okay, there's no credit risk, there's no fraud risk. That takes out a lot of the merchant problems and allows the money to go from one card to another. Now, if there's not enough money on the card, the buyer, the pre-auth will expire and nothing will happen. The seller will not have transferred the coin. If the seller isn't transferring the right amount of coins, the transaction will also be closed out and won't work either. So it's as close as to bulletproof as you can get, which at the end of the day, remember, we're all Zoocoin holders. Whether you've got 10 coins or you've got 5 million, it doesn't matter. That we're all independent people, part of a community network. So people think that the myzoocoins.org is something to do with me. That's actually produced directly from the horse's mouth. What you're reading is coming directly from Robert and Peter, and they're putting the time and effort to tell you where things are up to, what's happening, and the processes that can expand the whole split chain and Zoocoins. So I read them religiously because I'm actually learning from that as to what's coming out of Robert's mind.